We caught it on live video, but I know that Peter Doocy is probably not at all happy that they caught this on live video. If you missed it at the White House, Peter Doocy, who's like 7 feet tall, maybe not that tall, he's like 6'7", maybe 6. He's a tall guy, nice head of hair, and a bird swoops down and lands on his head during a live report for Fox and Friends.
Yeah, Peter, I appreciate it.
A bird just landed on my head.
What is going on? Was that a bird? What was that about?
I did not like that at all.
Peter, the back of your head, your hair's standing up now.
I mean, you got good hair, though.
What is going on?
That's probably so dirty.
That's his biggest concern, is that it's dirty. And he's like, oh my God. And that's the thing. Whenever something happens like that live, unexpected, you really get a sense of the person that it happened to. You really get a sense of what Peter Doocy's like. And I met Peter Doocy. He's a very nice guy. He's, been a reporter at the White House for a while, and he's funny, likable, that kind of thing. But when the bird landed on his head, he got super high pitched and girly and concerned about dirt.
Yeah, Peter, I appreciate it.
A bird just landed on my head.
What is going on? Was that a bird? What was that about?
I did not like that at all.
Peter, the back of your head, your hair's standing up now.
I mean, you got good hair, though.
What is going on?
That's probably so dirty.
That's probably so dirty. He's, that as soon as his day was done, I don't even know. I guess he's there all day, because there is going to be a White House briefing probably during the show, and we may dip into it live here in just a minute. But Caroline Levitt's going to come out for a White House press briefing. I imagine that Peter Doocy will be there. I don't know if he has time to go home and take a shower, because he's very concerned about the filth that has now touched his perfectly coiffed scalp in the form of bird talons.
That's probably so dirty.
Maybe he's an Atlanta Falcons fan. Aren't they the dirty birds? I think that's what it is. Dirty bird. That was a ludicrous thing.
That's probably so dirty.
That's my favorite new clip. I'm saving that one for sure. We'll see. Anyway, that made my day. That made my Friday. That got me ready for the weekend. That was like, man, I'm ready to party now. Now that Peter Doocy got walloped in the head by a bird, which, again, you can't blame the bird. He's 7 feet tall. He's got this big head of hair. He looks like a tree, probably. The bird probably thought it was a nest. Or the other thing is, the bird thought maybe he was a threat. That's the other thing they say. Like, they have, when a bird is nesting and there's kids or eggs or whatever, I guess birdlets. What do you call them? Are they birdlings? Birdlets? Baby birds, whatever it is. They tend to be on hypersensitive, and they'll go out and they'll attack anyone or anything that they deem as threatening. But after this outburst, clearly Peter Doocy was not threatening at all. The bird swooped down on Peter Doocy and heard it go, ah! Oh my God, it's so dirty. And the bird was like, oh, that dude's no threat.
That's probably so dirty.
Yeah, my kids are gonna be fine around that guy. Hey, listen, we have some exciting stuff going on all the time, and we don't want you to miss any of it. So right now, the first thing before we move on that you should probably do is subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you tell the podcast player that you're listening to, I want to subscribe to this podcast, and I want to do it right now. Tap that button wherever it may be and say, this is what I like to hear. This is what I want to listen to, and I want you to deliver it to me without me even having to ask. And that's the best way to do it. Just subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, if you're watching on Facebook or X, wherever you happen to be, also subscribe, because it's another great way for you to tell these people in social media land, these people out there in Silicon Valley, I'm gonna tell them what for. And I'm going to tell them I like the Mark Kaye Saves the Republic podcast and live stream, and I want to see it every single day. So please notify me when it's live. And if you're on Facebook, somebody asked me the other day, because on Facebook, we have there's a lot of different ways to support the show. The stars aren't working right. I got to figure that one out, because the stars used to work really well, and that was a great way for people to, throw us a bone. But you can watch our videos, which is fantastic. And somebody asked me the other day and said, what happens if I subscribe to you on Facebook? And I said, oh, if you subscribe to me on Facebook, then we get a monthly, we get a little monthly stipend from your subscription that we can then use to enhance the program and travel and book guests and make your experience that much better. And, so I can eat and that kind of stuff. And they go, oh, great. What do I get in return? And I go, well, you get the knowledge that you're helping one of your favorite broadcasters continue to be able to broadcast. And they go, is there like anything? I go, no, there's not on Facebook. You can join the Kaye Club, but by all means, if you're just looking for an easy way to support Mark Kaye Saves the Republic on Facebook, hit the subscribe button. I think there's a private group, but I don't expect anything else other than my gratitude. And I'll keep you in my prayers. Listen, we've got so much stuff to get into. There's this story today about this colonel. It was a Space Force colonel who was relieved of her duty because she, in an email, which is the dumbest thing ever, smack talked the Vice President of the United States after his trip to Greenland. So I don't know if she was just trying to get out of Greenland, which I suspect. I suspect she's like, man, it is cold as it's cold as you know what here. I want out. I want to get back stateside. When I joined the Space Force, I didn't think they were going to land me on a block of ice in the northern Atlantic. I thought, Space Force, I'll be in Florida. I'll be in Cape Canaveral. I'll be in Houston. Space Force, you're thinking, I'm going to be in some lush tropical paradise. Maybe, I don't know, where, California, wherever these Air Force bases are. They stuck this lady out in Greenland, and she was like, man, I got to get out of here. How am I going to do it? And when Vice President J.D. Vance came along, she saw her opportunity and she took it. We'll get to that story in just a minute. And President Donald Trump says, we're moving quickly. Trump says, we're moving fast. You gotta keep up. He posted on True Social, we are doing really well on our tariff policy. Very exciting for America and the world. It is moving along quickly. DJT. So, and you have to understand that Donald Trump moves at a lightning fast pace. He moves so quickly that the people around him can't even keep up. And he's got some pretty spry people around him. He's got some pretty mannered people, great shape, young, youthful. Pete Hegseth, by the way, former military, current Secretary of Defense. That guy has trouble keeping up with President Donald Trump, and he's like half his age. But it's really astounding to see how quickly these people are fixing every problem we have in the United States of America and the world. They're fixing the problem at the border. They're fixing the problem with immigration. They're fixing the problems with Russia and with Iran. They're fixing the problems with the economy. They're fixing the problems with tariffs. They're resetting everything, the new global order, and they're doing it all at a record-setting pace. We're not even at 100 days yet. And Donald Trump and his team have done more in 100 days than most presidents do in their first administration. It's very exciting to see the budget being passed. He's working on daylight savings time. Ted Cruz and Rick Scott are right now battling in the Senate to lock the clock and figure out a way to make sure that daylight savings time is no longer a burden on the American people and also a drain on the economy. Because, man, when you have to switch your clocks back and forth and you're in a climate like Florida or Texas or California where sunshine equals money, then you want as much sunshine as humanly possible. You want your beaches and your beach rental companies and your pools and you want all that stuff. You want it all to be available to you for as long as possible. You want hours and hours and hours every single day that you can work to make that additional money. And if it gets dark at like 5 o'clock, that stinks. Even jobs like construction. I mean, think about all the extra time you could put in if you had more daylight. So that's what they're working on. That's what they're working on currently in the Senate to make sure that we can lock the clock and make America brighter and also greater again, which is something that I'm very excited about. Listen, before we get to any of that, though, we do want to thank our sponsor today. Colonial Metals Group came along, I don't even remember, like a year ago, maybe 2 years. I don't even remember how long I've known Paul Stone now, but he's a great guy. We're going to get him back on the show before too long. But with all of the volatility in the stock market, there's some people that are built for it, and there's some people that just are not. There's some people that are like, oh, I love it, we're going to come out on top. And some people are like, this roller coaster is making me nauseous, let me get off. But with gold and silver and precious metals-based investments and IRAs, you can really secure your financial future and no longer have to worry about the whims of a what did Donald Trump call it again? Oh, a twitchy market. We'll just go with. You can secure your financial future with gold. And they put together this great free gold guide that you can get at freegoldguide.com/K. freegoldguide.com/KAYE. And inside your free gold guide, you'll learn how to protect and grow your retirement savings, why precious metals offer a strong defense against de-dollarization, how simple it is to safeguard your retirement tax-free and penalty-free. And there's a limited time offer if you open a brand new account with Colonial Metals Group, up to $7,500 in free bonus silver sent to your home or stored in a secured vault of your choosing. That's fantastic. They'll even kick in a free safe if you want to. So check out freegoldguide.com/K. freegoldguide.com/KAYE. That is your way in to a much more secure financial future via our friends at Colonial Metals Group. And make sure you tell them you heard about it from me, Mark Kaye. All right, so let's get to this story about this lady. This is Space Force Colonel Susan Myers, who criticized VP J.D. Vance's visit to Greenland. She's been relieved from her post. So writes our buddy Gunther Eagleman. He adds in there, good riddance, with the little, I don't like just getting the news from the news. I like getting the news from people like Cat Turd and Gunther Eagleman and DC Drano and all these other fun people on X, because you can editorialize. And that's why I like X so much too as a platform, because I can add information and I can share information and I can editorialize. And man, what's more fun than editorializing and adding emojis? You don't get emojis. You didn't get sarcastic emojis before X, before social media took over and became our number one news source. So I'm really, like I said, I really am excited to see that happening as well. But here's the deal. Space Force Colonel Susan Myers, who criticized VP J.D. Vance, has been relieved of her post. Here's the official release from, who sent this? Sean Parnell. Sean Parnell, by the way, is the assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs. And he writes, this is my favorite, for release by Space Operations Command Public Affairs from Pitufik. I don't even know. From Pitufik. That's really Pitufik. It's tough to say, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. And I feel like I'm saying a wordy dirt. I feel like I'm cursing when I say Pitufik. But from Pitufik Space Base in Greenland, Colonel Susanna Myers, commander of Pitufik Space Base, was removed from command by Colonel Kenneth Clock. She got clocked. Commander of Space Base Delta 1 on April 10th, 2025, for loss of confidence in her ability to lead. Commanders are expected to adhere to the highest standards of conduct, especially as it relates to remaining nonpartisan in the performance of their duties. Colonel Sean Lee has assumed command. So Susanna Myers is out. Sean Lee is in. All of this is per Colonel Kenneth Clock from Pitufik Space Base in Greenland. Now, what did she do to have the confidence lost in her? Well, I'll tell you exactly what she did. She sent an email. J.D. Vance, you may remember, the Vice President of the United States, and I guess Assistant Commander-in-Chief, I don't even know what you call him. He went to Greenland with his wife, Usha, and they toured around and they were hanging out and they were, I guess, scoping out plans for their new digs for when we take over Greenland. And what happened was this woman sent an email after the fact. They came and they did their tour and then they left. And I guess she came back on Monday. Here it is. Myers, who assumed control of the 821st Space Base Group in July 2024, fired off a message to the troops in her command stating that the views discussed by Vance during his visit on March 28th, quote, are not reflective of Pitufik Space Base. She said, quote, I spent the weekend thinking about Friday's visit, the actions taken, the words spoken, and how it must have affected each of you. She wrote to her subordinates in the email obtained by military.com and verified by the Space Force. I do not presume to understand current politics, but what I do know is the concerns of the U.S. administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Pitufik Space Base. I commit that for as long as I am lucky enough to lead this base, all of our flags will fly proudly together. That's an ironic statement, seeing as how she's no longer, for as long as I'm in command of this base, aka another week, these flags will all fly together. Now, I don't know Pardon me, I don't know if she's talking about the flags of Greenland and Denmark or whatever. I don't know if she's talking about LGBTQ flags or Black Lives Matter flags. I don't know what she's talking about. It doesn't go into that detail. But apparently, J.D. Vance rolled in and said, hey, what's up, Patufik? Thank you for your service. I just want to say a couple things about the base. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we want to do. We want to take over Greenland. Greenland's imperative to our defenses. We want the American flag. We don't want this flag. Get that flag out of here. Whatever. I don't know. And apparently, this woman went home. She was super emo, and Colonel Susanna Myers spent the entire weekend going, oh, woe is me. I can't believe that the vice president said all that stuff. I'm going to write an email to my underlings, and I'm going to basically admonish the vice president of the United States in an email on a government server. Clearly, she's not the most. This is not the kind of person I want in the military. First of all, you never want somebody questioning their commanding officers, right? If you are in the military, and I've never been in the military, but I know a lot of people in the military, and the idea of a chain of command is important, not just for mission success, but also for survival. Survival is key and crucial, and so you obey the orders of your commanding officers and you don't question them. And that is something I've learned from my friends in the military. That's something I've learned from being around the military. That's something I've learned from watching A Few Good Men, probably a few too many times. You know, God, country, unit, corps, all that kind of stuff. But she basically said, I don't care what the vice president of the United States says on his visit. I'm going to let you know that we do not agree with anything he said. And now she's been relieved of her duties. And as I said earlier, I think this woman's like, look, here's a picture of 821st Space Base Group in Patufik, right? I'm just saying it's not Club Med. You know, this looks like, it looks like a double wide on an iceberg is what this looks like. This looks like, and again, I don't know what they do at 821st Space Base in Patufik. I don't know what the mission is there, but it definitely looks like somebody, you know, it looks like a trailer I used to take geometry in when I was in high school, only surrounded by snow. And so that's where they went. I imagine she looked around this place and said, I want to get out of here, man. Get me back somewhere. And maybe she saw this as an opportunity to be relieved of her command and to travel somewhere else that is maybe a little bit more climate friendly to someone of her sort. But it doesn't matter because now the Space Force is in good hands. I don't want to talk smack about the Space Force because it was the newest branch of the military, and the Space Force was created by President Donald Trump during his first administration, and it's very important. And they call themselves Guardians of the Galaxy, or just Guardians, I guess. I don't know. Do they call them Guardians? I guess Guardians. And it's more, I understand that the Space Force is less of a hand-to-hand combat fighting on the ground or urban warfare type system. It's more of a computer, drone, scientific. You're gonna have probably more of your techno nerds and geeks, sign up to be Guardians on the Space Force, because until we get to the manned vessels and things like that. But this is really something where you're going to be sitting in a command center commanding all kinds of really high-tech weapon systems that are intergalactic. I get it. It's cool. It's awesome. It's very Star Trek. But at the same time, I imagine that it brings in a different type of person, not your, oorah, clean Marine, rip off your head and down your neck kind of person. So maybe, yes, your commanding officers are going to be a little bit more sensitive. But still, it's a branch of the military. And in the military, you listen to your commanding officer, and that goes all the way up the chain to the vice president and to the president of the United States. And you don't question those orders. And if you do, definitely don't be dumb enough to do it. Definitely don't be dumb enough to do it. In an email, speaking of the Defense Department, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who we just discussed, came back from Panama, and he was in Panama basically telling the Panamanians, you got to tell China to kick rocks or else. And apparently that's exactly what happened.
Mr. President, we just got back from Panama last night. We were at the Panama Canal with their Southcom commander ships, F-18s, troops, and signed a couple of historic deals. One which is with the Panama Canal Authority, a framework for U.S. vessels, first and free through the Panama Canal. And then also a memorandum of understanding with their security minister for the presence of U.S. troops. Fort Sherman, it's an old U.S. base there, as well as their naval station and air station, jointly with Panama to secure the Panama Canal from Chinese influence. That's something you said, we're taking back the canal. China's had too much influence. Obama and others let them creep in. We, along with Panama, are pushing them out, sir. And so we had a very successful trip there. President Molino sends his regards, very complimentary of the U.S. as he's a great ally, and I think they want the communist Chinese out. And with our troops there partnering with their forces, we've got a chance to push them all the way out, sir.
All right, so it's interesting. So it looks good. So it looks good here. What we're starting to see is that now is that it apparently is the United States is greater than China, at least in the eyes of the Panamanians. Given the choice between Trump and Xi Jinping, the Panamanians picked Trump, and that's good news. That's good news because you want the Panamanians to pick, you want everyone to pick Donald Trump. And that's what we're starting to see around the world, not just in the tariff battle, but in all of these other battles and in global trade. And where am I? There I am. And in all these things. And Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth goes down there to say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. We're taking back the Panama Canal. You're going to kick these Chinese people out. And they're like, okay, no problem. And Caroline Leavitt reiterated that same statement in her press briefing yesterday.
It's the policy of this White House and the Trump administration to put America first, to bring back jobs that have been flawed overseas, to no longer allow China to dump cheap foreign products into the United States of America while they prevent American-made products from entering their market. China has been taking advantage of the American worker for decades. Both Democrats and Republicans have called on presidents to do something about this, to finally attack our crippling trade deficit with China, and to also make them pay for the more than $600 billion they have stolen from American companies and taxpayers in the form of intellectual property. So the president has great courage to finally take on China in this way. He has said he's open to talks. He's open to negotiating a deal. He believes China wants to talk to the United States of America. They just don't know how to go about it. We've had more than 75 other nations across the globe reaching out to this administration because they know this is the greatest country to do business. And those deals are underway. They are being negotiated by the president's trade team. But America cannot exist if we continue to enrich and embolden China. And President Trump is finally doing something about it.
Yeah, there you go. And President Trump is doing everything in his power, and so is his cabinet, to make sure that China is not emboldened, to make sure that they are weakened. Physically weakened, that or economically weakened, militarily weakened, and part of that is strengthening the United States of America. There's only we can't go in. I mean, short of just bombing them out of the ocean, we can't go in and reduce the number of ships that China has. But what we can do is increase the number of ships that we do. We can't go in and try to destroy Chinese technology, but what we can do is we can beef up our own technology. We can't go in and destroy their infrastructure or their manufacturing, but what we can do is we can use the power of the tariff to push people around and make sure that manufacturing comes back to the United States of America, or else those people that are not going to, I guess you would say, comply, are going to have to pay out the wazoo. And in the end, it would just be a lot cheaper for them to come back here and make their stuff in the United States than it would be to import it from China. And Stuart Varney was talking about President Donald Trump this past week and how Donald Trump has moved so quickly on so many things. He's yes, people's heads are whipping around and the stock market looks like a roller coaster ride at Six Flags, all that. But the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump has dominated and will continue to dominate because of the agenda that he has, the limited time he has to execute that agenda, and the team he has in place that is working around the clock to make sure it all gets done.
This week, President Trump dominated the world stage. He stamped his influence on markets and economies everywhere. Investors have been whipsawed. Politicians are scrambling. Any statement from the White House provoked instant global reaction. Look, I've been doing this for 50 years, and I can't remember a week quite like this one. On Monday, April the 7th, the Nasdaq fell 5.8%. That was a shock. It signaled that the long and glorious big tech rally had truly wound down. Wall Street was reacting to the president's tariffs. There was a growing sense of unease. When a fake report about a suspension of the tariffs appeared, the Dow went up 1,000 points in minutes, then immediately fell back when the report turned out to be false. That's a truly skittish market. Tuesday, no relief. The Nasdaq fell another 2%. Worried investors were badgering the Treasury Secretary. Corporate leaders were badgering Trump's chief of staff. Do something. The economy is going to tank. It was a panic environment which we had not seen in years. The bombshell arrived suddenly on Wednesday, April the 9th. Out of the blue, the president dropped all reciprocal tariffs on everyone except China. That was a stunning turnaround. Had Trump caved, blinked, retreated, or was this just part of the negotiating process? The market zoomed. It was a history-making rally that took the Nasdaq up 12%. We'd never seen anything like that before. But it didn't satisfy the naysayers who opposed tariffs and truly detest Trump. There were constant warnings about recession. Interest rates were rising. China was showing no sign of buckling to pressure. It was a week that defined Trump's presidency. He is reversing America's direction. Trump does not accept massive trade deficits and job losses. That's what this week has been all about. Tax policy, Ukraine, Putin, Iran, Gaza, all relegated to the back burner. Today, China upped the ante, imposing a 125% tariff on American goods. We tariff them at 145%.
Yeah, by the way, I'm sorry, I got wrapped up. His voice is so mesmerizing. I really think the reason Stuart Varney has a show is because of his voice. I don't know if he knows what he's talking about. I don't know if he's a business insider or expert, or if he's, an economic, PhD, a doctor of economics. Well, I don't know what he is, but his voice is just mesmerizing. And I think that's why Donald Trump dominated the headlines this week. His economic whip shop. I mean, he could say he could just tell me your mama jokes for like an hour and I'd be mesmerized. Your mama is so fat, it takes her 2 trips to haul ass. Like, that's the kind of thing that, when you have that kind of an accent, when you have that kind of a voice, people, man, they'll just listen to you no matter what they say. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why he's so successful. One of the funniest clips I saw, by the way, was Stuart Varney with his lush, velvety British accent talking to Tom Homan with his South Bronx. I'm a Dick Tracy villain type. It's a very funny conversation. And here, you know what? I'll just play it for you.
Is that legal, taking away their Social Security numbers?
Absolutely, because they're released in the United States illegally. The program was unlawfully used, and we'll make sure these people are removed from the country. They didn't make a legal entry. They didn't come in here under legal entry. And I've been saying for the last couple of years that the Biden administration, we're bringing thousands of people a day into this country by abuse of the parole statute. Even a district court judge in Texas said not only were they ignoring the law, they actually violating the law. Well, we're going to enforce the law in the Trump administration.
Okay. Are you going to use IRS information to find the illegals?
We hope to. I mean, this is about protecting the American taxpayer, protecting their Social Security information. And we know for a fact illegal aliens use American Social Security information to apply for jobs. My wife's Social Security number was stolen by an illegal alien that affected her credit rating. It took a long time to get it fixed. So this happens 1,000 times across this country. We're protecting Social Security for the people who deserve it, for the people who paid into it for decades. We need to protect it for those that need it and those who are authorized to receive it.
2 things. First of all, man, I feel horrible for that illegal immigrant who, man, was dumb enough to rip off Tom Homan's wife's Social Security number. Of all the Social Security numbers in the world, he chose Tom Homan's wife. Ooh, that just opens up a world of hurt, doesn't it? Oh, no, you didn't. It's just it's my wife, for example. She had her Social Security. The illegal alien took her Social Security number. That guy, I threw his ass on a plane so fast, he's in El Salvador in a prison, shaved his head, he's crying to his mama, he ain't never coming. No, you're never going to hear from that guy again. That's like the worst. I mean, of all, you shouldn't steal anyone's Social Security number, especially if you're illegal. But if you've already, if you're already a criminal, what do you got to lose? But definitely don't steal Tom Homan's wife. That's almost worse than stealing Tom Homan's Social Security number. If you stole Tom Homan's Social Security number, he'd be mad. You steal Tom Homan's wife's Social Security number. Oh, dude, you better self-deport ASAP is all I'm saying. That's the first thing. But also, how great is that conversation between Stuart Varney and Tom Homan? Are you going to be using Social Security numbers to be hunting down illegal immigrants in this country? Tom Homan's like, yeah, whatever's we can use. They got them illegally anyway. Forget it. Of course we're going to go get them. We're going to go smack them around, throw them out of the boom. Very interesting plan of attack. It's really, I love this administration. There's nothing not interesting or exciting or entertaining about President Donald Trump, his cabinet, and the moves that they're making to make America a truly wonderful place again. By the way, speaking of accents, I totally forgot. I read I was going back and reading some of the comments from yesterday's show, and I realized that I teased something like 2 days, because I go back and read the comments. I don't typically get to read them live because, again, it's just me. But I did go back, and somebody said, hey, Mark mentioned the story about Jon Stewart and the Jon Stewart show and how he was featured on the Jon Stewart show, but he never actually did the story. And that also happens a lot. I'll say something along the lines of, oh, let me tell you about this in just a minute, and then I'll totally forget about it. But I did want to share this story with you because it's kind of, I'll be honest with you, it made me laugh out loud. It made me LOL, as the kids say. And it's about Jon Stewart has a show now. It's not the Daily Show anymore. He doesn't host that. I don't even know who. It was Trevor Noah, but I don't think it is anymore. And Jon Stewart, I guess he was filling in on the Daily Show or whatever. I just call it the Jon Stewart Show. He was doing a segment about Donald Trump's tariffs and his policies, and he picked up a couple clips from some conservative broadcasters and pundits. One of them, Benny Johnson, who you see on the screen there. Another one is a guy from Newsmax named John Tobacco, and sandwiched in between was yours truly with a clip from an appearance I did on Newsmax, the morning show last week. Listen.
Depression. So how does this work?
It's just a big game of economic operation as he's sticking things in, trying to take out tariffs.
It's like, when you're my age, you got to get a colonoscopy. You need a full colonic, to feel better. You know what I mean?
Rat poison can kill somebody in the wrong dosages, but in the right dosages, that can be very healthy for the patient.
Look, by the way, I made this still frame. Me and John Tobacco and this Asian gentleman. I don't know who it is. I'm not wearing a tie, by the way, which remind me in just a minute. I mean, we need to discuss. But here's the still frame. Here's Jon Stewart, Asian man, John Tobacco, and yours truly. Which this is when I knew I think we're really hitting the big time. We're really hitting the big time.
So everyone relax. This is merely a routine rat poison colonoscopy. By the way, what's the right dosage of rat poison? Oh, if you get enough of it, hey, your headache will be gone. And by the way, I mean, it's slightly off topic, but the colonoscopy guy, his name is John Tobacco? That's a witness protection thing, isn't it? So here's how it's going to go. Your new name is John Tobacco. Say it back to me, John Tobacco. Your name is John Tobacco. Say it back to me, John Tobacco. Your new profession is you do anus metaphors on Newsmax. Your name is John Tobacco. You do anus metaphors.
Okay, which I'm going to be honest with you. Look, it's a comedy show. I laughed. I thought it was very funny. I understand Jon Stewart is politically motivated, but Jon Stewart does what I try to do. I mean, when you're a political comedian, you can't look at something like that and go, that's messed up, man. That's not right. Unless, of course, you're John Tobacco, in which case you can go right after him. First of all, the Italian American Civil Rights League condemned Jon Stewart for that clip. In fact, I have it here. Look, the IACRL, the Italian American Civil Rights League, condemns Jon Stewart, ironically not even his real name, which is true, for his bigoted anti-Italian attack on our member Johnny Tobacco. For far too long, the left-wing public figures have perpetuated hateful stereotypes on our people with no accountability. So the mafia metaphor apparently is that's a hateful stereotype. So I don't want to get into it, but John Tobacco responded on Newsmax, and I want to make sure that I save that clip because I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny as well. His response and his response was basically, guess what? It's Jon Stewart who made up his name. Jon Stewart is the one who is working under a pseudonym, not John Tobacco, because Jon Stewart was born like John Leibowitz or something. Oh, here it is.
The tariff regime is a tried and true remedy. Oh, of course. Here's how it's going to go.
I think this is it. Here it is.
When he starts
here it is.
Feel like
On tobacco.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
That's me.
It's you.
That's what they gave me at
That's
home
you.
base when I popped out of Mama. You're John Tobacco, okay? I've been dealing with that for 57 years at this point.
You know, I
By the way, I should point out John Tobacco he's a great guy. He's very funny, and he hosts a show called Wise Guys. Okay, that's literally the name of his show on Newsmax is called Wise Guys. So, I mean, you know, it's not out of character. It's John Tobacco from Wise Guys.
Did you love it? Or were you offended by it? How was it?
Here's
I mean,
the thing.
no such thing as bad press.
I have mixed emotions because I used to look up to Jon Stewart. He was telling you the real news with some comedy, which is what I do, and I feel like he was funny and informational, you know? But when he starts talking about the witness protection program, number one, you don't do that to a guy from Staten Island. So you're going to have to pay for that one, Jon Stewart. We'll talk soon. Maybe you'll come to a sit down on Wise Guys. But on the other side of the coin, I did love it because I feel like Jon Stewart's comedy has been in the witness protection program for like the last 10 years. So he was finally funny. I was laughing, but I was like, why me? Why, you know, last year Jimmy Kimmel was pounding on me, saying I was a Dick Tracy villain, doing my show in an Olive Garden. Now Jon Stewart. So I feel like, you know, we're over the target a little bit on Wise Guys because why are all these leftist media clowns coming after me? And by the way, Bobby, a lot of people out there might be interested to know this. While he's mocking me for my name, my real name, John Tobacco, and kind of making fun that I'm Italian, Jon Stewart is actually John Leibowitz. So he's the one that's the imposter. He's running around with a fake name. And I wonder, you know, why would you change your name to Stewart, which sounds like a Scottish Anglo name? Is he embarrassed of his heritage? Because I'm not. I'm Italian. He's saying witness protection, this, that. Hey, Jon Stewart, my father was a proud member of the NYPD for 20 years. He put his life on the line for this city that you live in, and it's disrespectful to say I'd be in the witness protection program for doing anything wrong because I was raised right. So stick it where the sun don't shine on that one.
Okay.
Now here's what
I love the news. I'll be honest with you. I am a fan of both John Tobacco and Jon Stewart. And after this whole thing, I'm an even bigger fan of both of them. And I was very excited to be sandwiched in between them for just a brief shining moment. I kind of wish, I'll be honest with you, I kind of wish that Jon Stewart made more fun of me, but I guess John Tobacco got the, I said operation, I should have said colonoscopy or rat poison. Even the Asian guy got more play than I did. And that's just, you know, and that's just a lesson learned. I kept it kind of clean and family friendly by talking about the operation and Cavity Sam. Next time, I'm just going to go full on anus metaphor. Anus metaphor or rat point. Anyway, that was the back and forth with Jon Stewart, and I apologize that I teased it and never delivered on the tease, because if I tease you, I want you to definitely want you to get your satisfaction in the end. But anyway, back to President Donald Trump, moving quickly on just about everything in his agenda. He had yesterday a meeting of his, what do we call it? Cabinet. That's right. And the cabinet meeting, I got to tell you, I talked about this in the 47 Daily Podcast today, which if you don't listen to, you should definitely subscribe to the 47 Daily Podcast, because the 47 Daily Podcast, forget about it. It's everything you need right there in the morning, all the news. It brings you up to speed on everything that they're doing in the White House, in the Trump administration, everything they're doing to make your lives better, to make America great again. And everyone just kind of went around one by one, and they started talking about everything that they're doing. One of the things, though, that I really thought was interesting was that Susie Wiles, who is kind of a self-proclaimed, you know, I'm not going to say hermit because she's out and about, but she never talks to the media, never talks to the news. President Donald Trump had to drag her up on stage. She ran the campaign. She was successful at it. And she had to get drug up on stage by the president. And she made a very out of character comment live on camera at this cabinet meeting. And it was in support of and in praise of the cabinet.
Susie, thank you very much for the job you've done. Go ahead, please.
I just want to make sure you know that this cabinet, I think, pretty uniquely collaborates and cooperates and works together to accomplish all that you've asked them to do, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
It's true. You're doing a great job. The chief of staff.
Doing a great job.
I mean, it wasn't a long comment, but it was nice of her to come out and say, hey, the cabinet's working really well. And that's something, by the way, that I've been saying for weeks now, that this cabinet is unlike any other cabinet. They work together like pieces, man. It's like, you know, like when you're putting together a gun and there's all the different pieces, that's how Donald Trump's cabinet is. You've got, you know, on the border, for example, you've got the Department of Homeland Security working together with the Department of Defense, and they're all working together, of course, with the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they're working diligently together with whoever else they need to make sure that they're not just securing the border and making sure that new illegals don't come in or in our process, but that they're prosecuting the ones who are here, and they're making sure that they're evicting and they're throwing out the ones who don't belong here. Whenever they come down on ICE or Tom Homan, or whenever they come down on the Border Patrol or Donald Trump, the DOJ is right there to go to court and battle and win, most importantly, for Donald Trump's right to use the powers that have been given to him to keep this country safe, like the Alien Enemies Act. And so that's an amazing thing to watch. When you look at when you look at the energy policy of the United States of America, sure, Chris Wright, the Secretary of Energy, is there, but he's also working with Doug Burgum, the Secretary of the Interior, to make sure that they've got this clean coal agreement signed, to make sure that they're drilling for oil and opening up land leases. And then, of course, they're working with Lee Zeldin from the EPA, who's also a cabinet member, and they're making sure that the regulations on businesses are not so stifling that they can't do anything, but they also want to protect the economy. And then, of course, when you've got all of that going on, you have to bring in Sean Duffy, the Transportation Secretary, because Sean Duffy, the Transportation Secretary, is going to make sure that while you're moving this energy all over the place, you're making sure that you've got the trucks and the trains and the helicopters and the planes and everything else that you need to keep this country moving. You can't get the supply chain all mucked up when you're producing massive amounts of energy that need to be moved around the country. So it really is great to see all of these moving parts moving together. Tulsi Gabbard at the DNI, she's working with NSA and Mike Waltz, and they're working together with, RFK Jr., who's Health and Human Services. But also, look at this. Tulsi Gabbard said, we're going to release more documents because we've had teams combing over them and they're ready to go. Documents about the JFK or RFK assassination and the MLK Jr. assassination.
And lastly, we've been scanning. I've had over 100 people working around the clock to scan the paper around RFK, Senator Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, as well as Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. These have been sitting in boxes in storage for decades. They have never been scanned or seen before. We'll have those ready to release here within the next few days.
That's great. Bobby, how do you feel about that?
I'm very gratified to hear.
That's hitting close to home, isn't it?
No
when you think,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Bobby when that statement's made.
I'm very grateful to you, Mr. President.
Yeah, and I mean, think about that. When have we ever seen, such secretive files being released in a cabinet meeting, or the announcement coming in a cabinet meeting, when the direct descendant of the son of the person they're talking about is right there? So what else is going on? Oh, Tulsi, what'd you want to say? Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we're going to release the files about your father's assassination. I mean, come on, that's just insane. It's really wild. And it's a once in a lifetime historic meeting when all of these people come together. And of course, it's historic what President Donald Trump is doing. The border crossings, as Kristi Noem mentioned.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for your leadership at the border. For the second month in a row, you have broken the record in the history of the nation for the lowest number of encounters at the border, which is absolutely remarkable. You have said that America's laws matter and that they'll be enforced, and we're hard at work now to get people to go back home that are here illegally. So the Alien Registration Act has been in place long enough now that those individuals that are here illegally, if they haven't registered, then they can be charged criminally, and they can face fines up to $1,000 a day and face deportation if they don't go home, and they'll never get the chance to come back to America. So we're encouraging people to use the CBP Home app to register, and we're working on the resources and funding to buy them a plane ticket to send them home. I went to El Salvador, Colombia, and Mexico, and those countries and others are thinking about setting up programs to support these individuals when they get back to their countries. So when they get there, they'll have housing and food assistance, and so making sure that these folks have the opportunity to go home so that they can get the chance to come back to America is important. And
so it's a very big self-deport operation that we're starting.
Thousands of people.
And that's an interesting point that she makes there. What's happening with Donald Trump's leadership is he's saying these people are coming home. So you got to prepare. They're coming home one way or another. You can send them home and we can dump them on the runway and you're going to have a problem, or you can prepare for it. And Kristi Noem's like, look, a lot of these countries are preparing for it. They're going to set up housing. They're going to set up relief efforts. They're going to set up schools. They're going to set up medical. They're going to set up whatever they need to set up. They're going to do all of that so that they're prepared to give these people a leg up and an opportunity to eventually, guess what? Come back to the United States of America the legal way. It's really, really fascinating. It's really interesting to see how Donald Trump's heavy-handed leadership, and not bad. You know, I mean, by heavy-handed, I don't mean that it's bad leadership. I'm not saying that he's a meanie or a bully or whatever. He's very, very kind, but he's also very direct, and he's very surefire, sure of himself and his decisions. And he goes, look, this is what we're doing. And since we're doing this, you all need to prepare on your end. Since we're levying these tariffs, you all have some decisions to make. Since we're closing the border and sending you these people back home, you need to figure out what you're going to do. And as a result, the rest of the world is stepping up. The rest of the world is changing. And it's because of what Donald Trump is doing here in the United States of America. When you have somebody that makes a decision and sticks to it, when you have somebody with gumption, when you have somebody with cojones and a spine, when you have somebody that's brave enough to say, I know what's right, I'm going to do what's right, and no one's going to stop me, then all of a sudden the rest of the world falls in line. And that's exactly what Marco Rubio said to him at the beginning of this cabinet meeting.
Well, Mr. President, one of the most important things I believe you'll achieve in your presidency is reordering the world in a proper way. For 31 years, more than 31 years now, multiple administrations have allowed the Chinese to deindustrialize this country, to take away jobs and factories and pillars of our national strength. And what you're doing now, I think, is a great service to our country, but ultimately to the world. And I want to congratulate you and your team that's working on that, because it has extraordinary geopolitical implications, as you see, from all of these other countries that are now coming here and wanting to join something that actually makes it's crazy to allow these. I mean, basically, we lived in a world where Chinese companies can do whatever they want in America. But our companies cannot do anything over there unless they allow it. And even then, they steal our stuff and reverse engineer it. So just reordering all of that has dramatic implications on peace and security of the world. So we thank you. An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to happen on Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Witkoff and a top-level leader in Iran. We hope.
Yeah, and they're there now, and they're talking but he's right. He's basically saying, Donald Trump, President Trump, because of what you're doing, you're reordering the entire world, which is a great way to put it. President Donald Trump looked at the world and said, we used to be at the top. Now we're down here. We're down here in education. We're still at the top of the military, but everyone else is coming way too close. We're still at the top economically, but everyone else is coming way too close. We're low on the respect meter. And when it comes to tariffs and free trade, forget about it. We are at the bottom of the barrel, and everybody is picking our pockets and kicking dirt in our face. And he said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to reorder everything. We're going to lift ourselves up. We're going to put ourselves back at the top economically. We're going to put ourselves back at the top of the pecking order. If you want to come to the United States, you're more than welcome, but you will not take advantage of us. You will not steal from us. You will not steal our money, our international or intellectual property. You're not going to do any of that. And if you do, you're going to pay the price, or you're going to be evicted. And now that we have a gatekeeper to the wealth and riches that the United States of America offers to everybody else in the world is treating us a lot nicer. You know, it's like, it's really weird. It's like when you, when you have let's say you're a teenager and you want some money to go out with your friends, right? And your dad is tough, and your dad is cheap, and your dad, doesn't take anything and your dad will be respected. He's one of those stern, in control fathers that commands the respect of the household and everyone in it. And if you go up and you want like $20 to go with your friends, you're like, Daddy, Father, whom I love and I respect, is it possible for me to have $20? And he goes, what for? And he goes, well, I would like to go to Chick-fil-A with my friends and hang out, and I'm going to need, money for the food, and then just whatever if something else comes up. And he goes, all right, fine, here's $20 to be back by 11. If you're not back by 11, then you're grounded. And you're like, yes, thank you. And you take the $20 and you go out and you get your Chick-fil-A, you're back by 11. That's how the rest of the world we're acting with Donald Trump. With Joe Biden, it was like your grandpa who falls asleep on the couch at 2 in the afternoon with his wallet hanging out of his pants. So you just grab his wallet, pull out 50, 60, $100, put it back in his pants. He's none the wiser. And you go out and you're out all night because nobody's keeping track of what you're doing. Nobody's stopping you from picking their pocket. That's where we are now. Donald Trump is the stern father figure who is going to make sure that everybody pays their fair share and everybody does what we want them to do. And if they don't, then they're grounded. There's no more money for them, no more freedom, no more ability to work with the United States of America. And that's basically what's been happening this whole time is that the rest of the world has been the bird and the United States of America has been Peter Doocy.
Yeah, Peter, I appreciate it.
A bird just landed on my head.
What is going on? What was that about?
Yeah, that's how the world was treating us. Now there's no more of that. If that bird landed on Donald Trump's head, that would be the last thing that bird would be served in the White House cafeteria for lunch. Listen, I'm going to dip in here in just a minute with the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. She's got a live press briefing, and I want to check it out for a couple reasons. Number one, I want to see who's in the new media seat, and I want to see what her updates are on some of the things that they're debating. But one other thing that I wanted to play for you was there's this clip of Representative Jahana Hayes, who I want to say is from Michigan, but I don't think that's right. I'll Google it in just a minute. And she voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which protects Americans from murderous, rapey, illegal alien gang members. Seems like a good thing. Seems like it's something everyone would want to support. Now she's coming out and saying she regrets supporting the Lake and Riley Act.
Supported that law. So I'm glad that you want to weigh in, because the question was about due process. And since it's for people who are accused and charged with crimes, but not necessarily convicted of them, what do you make of the concerns about due process?
So I understand your concerns, and I understand how immigrants across this country who are here legally and have followed the law are being terrorized right now because they are unsure of what happens next. I voted for that piece of legislation because of a very specific provision, and it was if it caused injury or death to a police officer, which was one small piece of it. There were other things about, to your point, Caitlin, someone who was was charged but hadn't been convicted. As I've thought about it over the last couple months, I probably would have voted differently. It's a vote that I regret, but coming into this Congress, I trusted that this administration, we would have some, if they wanted to have border security, they wanted to work with Democrats, that we could actually move forward. I'm not really sure of that because I've seen the rhetoric that has come out and the attacks that have been targeted towards immigrants. So I'm very cautious and careful when I'm negotiating my votes moving forward.
It's notable, Congresswoman, to hear you say you regret that vote. Congressman McKenzie, what's your response and thoughts on all of this?
I would say this, actions that we have seen from illegal immigrants coming into our country, committing these heinous crimes, are a serious challenge. That
Yeah. All right. Anyway, she's from Vermont, by the way. Wait, Vermont or Connecticut? Oh shoot, I just looked her up. She's from what's CT? Connecticut. She's from Connecticut, by the way. Connecticut, Vermont. I get all those Yankee states mixed up, but she's from Connecticut, and she said she regrets the Lake and Riley Act vote and supporting it, which is a weird thing to say because it protects Americans from illegal aliens. She was fine with the police provision, but apparently not the non-police or the civilian provisions that came along with it. Again, I don't understand the Democrats and their thought processes. I don't understand how they can try to make sense of something that's so nonsensical, but that's exactly what we're dealing with. The really interesting thing to me is all of these town hall meetings that CNN is having, because A, I didn't know that anyone still watched CNN, and B, all of these people who are popping up on these CNN town hall meetings, it seems to me like they're still looking at CNN as some kind of mouthpiece for their 2026 or 2028 campaigns. They're looking at CNN and they're going, you know what? I think that CNN is the place I can go to make my case to the American people so I can get elected in 2026 or reelected in 2026 or maybe propel myself into a new position in 2028. They're still looking at CNN as some kind of political megaphone where they can connect with a bunch of voters. And CNN holding all of these town hall meetings is just the most bizarre thing to me because, again, I didn't think that they had the viewership. I imagine more people are going to watch Peter Doocy flipping out over a dirty bird landing on his head than are ever going to see this town hall meeting.
Yeah, Peter, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Peter.
A bird just landed on my head.
What is going on? Was that a bird? What was that about?
I did not like that at all.
Yeah. By the way, did you know who did like it? Brian Kilmeade. Our old buddy Brian Kilmeade. He's sitting there on the couch. He's sitting on the right. When this bird hits Brian Kilmeade's house, hits Steve Ducey's head, I've never seen anyone happier than Brian Kilmeade. Look at this.
Peter, I appreciate
A bird just landed on my head.
Look at that smile. Look, Peter Ducey is in terror right now. Peter Ducey's about to wet himself, if he hasn't already, and look at the huge grin on Brian Kilmeade's face. I don't know if there's beef between the two. I don't know if Brian Kilmeade's like, take that tall guy, because Brian Kilmeade, not the tallest man in the world. I mean, not that I am either, but I'm taller than Brian Kilmeade. But I don't know what his beef is with Peter Ducey, but you have never seen Brian Kilmeade. I mean, he had a #1 bestseller, and I didn't see him that happy as I see him right there when Peter Ducey gets hit with a bird. Look at him. He's like, he's turning over to what's his name. Did you see that? Oh my God, Ducey just got hit with a bird. This is the best.
What is going on? Was that a bird?
That is.
What was that about?
I did not like that at all.
Look at that. Where have all the men gone? Oh, speaking of which, by the way, this time I'm not going to forget. So, as I continue to press forward with a very, 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 very serious consideration as to my future in politics, I've been doing some, what do you call it? I guess you would say exploration. There's been exploratory committees. There's been conversations. I've been looking at the track record of my opponent, John Rutherford, who, anyway, with all of that going on, there's talk of, okay, if you're going to mount a campaign or when you mount your campaign, you're going to need a lot of stuff. You're going to need volunteers. There's going to be donations. There's going to be speaking engagements. You're going to need a platform. And my platform is anything John Rutherford does, I'm against. Because the guy's horrible. And they go, that's not a good platform. You actually need to work on it. So there's all this stuff going into it. And then somebody said to me, by the way, you're going to need to get new headshots. And I said, what's wrong with the headshots I have? And they go, well, it's you wearing sunglasses and holding a tie and, or holding a flag, and you're not like wearing a tie or anything. And I said to myself, do I need, is that part of the deal? Do I need to wear a tie if I'm running for Congress? And they suggested you should probably look more like a congressman, which I'm going to be honest with you. I was never one of those conformists. I was never one of those, I want to look like a congressman. I was like, no, I just want to be a congressman, but do all the things that congressmen are doing and congresswomen are doing, like insider trading. I want to stop all of that. All of these things they're doing, like not holding town hall meetings or communicating with their constituents, I want to end all of that too. All of this stuff they're doing, like these closed door deals or sending money to Ukraine or telling you they're doing one thing when really they're doing the opposite. I'm going to put an end to, I don't want to do that. So if you're telling me that in order to be a congressman, I got to roll in there with like a jacket and a tie, I'm thinking to myself, that's the opposite of what I'm trying. I mean, I'm not John Fetterman. I'm not going to roll in with a hoodie. I wear a collared shirt every day as it is now and some nice pants. But I'm just wondering to myself, is that something I need to do in order to become elected as the next congressman for Florida's 5th District? And so I did what any good politician would do when they're trying to make an important decision. And I put a poll in the field on X. And I wrote, when I run for Congress, do I need to start wearing a coat and tie? And look at this. It's been about 24 hours. There's 1 hour left on this poll. And a very solid majority of 61.1% said, yes, I need to start wearing a coat and a tie. So apparently the seriousness of the wardrobe is enough to take into consideration when doing these headshots and these posters and things like that. When I run for Congress, do I need to start wearing a coat and tie? 61% of Patriots polled said yes. 38% said nah. And these are clearly my people. But, I need the 61%. And then I went into the comments. JP wrote, Fetterman didn't, but it depends on where you'll run for office. Russ wrote, and a fedora. I'm sorry, I'm not a fedora kind of guy. Try gym shorts and a hoodie. Man, I had to think about that, says Jesse. I said, nah, but what would you go with? So again, I'm not, I wore a tie the other day when I went to the Capitol, and everybody was like, and my daughter was like, you own a tie? which I do. I own a tie. That's not true. I own several ties, but I only wear 2. I don't know if guys are like this, but I have a bunch of different ties. I have ties that, like, I had an Easter tie and I had a Christmas tie and blah, 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 blah. But there's only 2 of my ties that I actually wear on the regs. And I guess I would have to get more. Coat, forget about it. I have like 1 coat. And I sweat a lot, so I try not to wear a lot of heavy clothing. But anyway, that's something I didn't even really take into consideration was wardrobe. Because again, I'm one of those guys that's like, I'm a doer. I want to go in there. And, the other thing too, I was talking about, it was very funny because they talk about how there's different kinds of Congress people. And they say there's Congress people that go in there and they just kind of like lay around and they're just trying to make a name for themselves. And they're just trying to, retire basically and not make waves. And they just want to live off the pension. That's my congressman. That's the guy that we currently have in District 5. Doesn't do a gosh darn thing, but is more than happy to collect the life insurance and the pension and maybe make some questionable stock trades so that he can retire in the lap of luxury, on the river, on the St. Johns River. But then there's the other kind of congressperson that goes in there and they're just like, rah, we're going to get work done and we're going to go to every committee and we're going to pass this bill and that bill and we're going to do this, that, and the other. And that's a great kind of congressman they have too. And then there's what they call the grenade thrower. And they're like, that person just walks in and throws a grenade and watches it explode and then walks away. And I was thinking to myself, that appeals to me. However, I understand how that can be kind of trying and cumbersome and I might be like a combo. I think I would be a combo of the doer and the on the committee and the getting stuff done person. But then occasionally I might, not a grenade, but maybe like a couple of M80s, or maybe like, one of those, maybe just come at some of those pop snapper things.
Happy Friday.
Oh, here we go. Here's Caroline Levitt.
As you all know,
let's take a listen real
the
quick.
president is currently.
Oh.
Last night, Kassina Karolina arrived back safely in the United States after being detained in Russia for more than a year. Since Inauguration Day, President Trump and his team have secured the release of more than 40 detained Americans abroad. This is more than half of the number of Americans released by Joe Biden in 4 years, and President Trump has brought these Americans home in 80 days. This administration will continue to work hard to bring Americans home from around the world. As I've said before, and I will say it again today, everybody in this room has access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. The cabinet meeting yesterday was further proof. President Trump asked each secretary to provide an update to all of you in the media on the critical work they are doing at their respective agencies to deliver on his agenda. And according to new reporting from the Washington Times, who I believe is in this room today, President Trump answered nearly 100 questions from the press, all of you, during his first 3 open press cabinet meetings this year. That's nearly 20 times the number answered by Joe Biden in cabinet meetings during his entire 4 years in office. In more excellent economic news that was released yesterday, the Consumer Price Index report showed inflation fell to 2.4% in March, smashing expectations for the second straight month in a row. This marked the first drop in consumer prices dating all the way back to the COVID pandemic. Prescription drug prices saw the largest monthly decline on record. Prices for airfare, used vehicles, and car insurance all decreased as well. And energy prices fell 2.4% in March, driven by plummeting gas prices around the country. Also yesterday, House Republicans answered President Trump's call to move forward the budget resolution and officially set the stage for the passage of one big, beautiful bill.
Big, beautiful bill.
The American economy will boom after this bill is passed and the rest of the president's pro-growth agenda goes into effect. The largest tax cuts and deregulation in history, coupled with our energy industry unleashed and renegotiated trade agreements that put America first, are the ultimate formula to usher in the golden age of America. On that note, more than 75 countries have now reached out to the Trump administration, eager to address the trade issues that have exploited America and hurt our workers in the process. The phones have been ringing off the hook to make deals, and these countries wisely heeded President Trump's warning not to retaliate, and as a result, they were rewarded with a 90-day pause and substantially lower reciprocal tariff rates during this period so potential solutions can be achieved. Past presidents just willingly accepted the failed status quo on trade that ripped off our workers and our companies.
But that's not who this president is. No. He creates his own leverage and negotiates deals better than anyone else who has sat in the Oval Office before him. And that process is currently underway. On another matter, the deadline for registration under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States longer than 30 days must register with the federal government. Failure to comply with this is a crime, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or both. As President Trump and Secretary Noem have both said, if you register and you leave now, you choose to self-deport. You may have the opportunity to return later legally. But if not, you will be arrested, fined, deported, never to return to our country again.
Oh, that's
the Trump
harsh.
administration will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws.
Yes.
We will not pick and choose which laws to enforce.
Correct.
We must know who is in our country for the safety and the security of our homeland and for all American citizens. I also have a note from the First Lady to share with you on this Friday. On Tuesday this week, First Lady Melania Trump celebrated the advancement of the Take It Down Act in the House Energy and Commerce Committee. The important legislation passed the committee with bipartisan support, and as you may remember, the president talked about this bill in his address to a joint session of Congress last month. The First Lady remains dedicated to her championing child well-being, ensuring that every young person can thrive, and of course, championing her Be Best agenda.
Perfect.
We urge Congress to swiftly pass this important legislation. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jordan Berman. Jordan is a social media content creator and influencer and a lawyer who grew up following breaking down the news from a neutral perspective. Jordan is the host of her own podcast called Unbiased Politics, where she dissects the top stories from the week from legal perspective.
Who wants unbiased
Jordan
politics?
focuses on bringing back real journalism from a nonpartisan perspective and has mastered explaining complex legal decisions to a mass audience in the short-form context.
I think I know her.
Her two biggest platforms are TikTok and Instagram, where she has roughly 500,000 followers on each.
I got
With that, please kick us off, Jordan.
Thank you. As you know, yesterday the House passed the SAVE Act, and many married women, soon to be married women, are concerned that the new voter ID requirements may inhibit their access to the polls. What assurances can you give women voters in America to ease their concerns?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, the SAVE Act, as you mentioned,
That's not going to happen. Your married women are safe, as we discussed yesterday. All right, so I didn't get the new media seat, but that's okay. We're still working on it. There's still 3 more years, and we are trudging forward. We will one day be in that new media seat. We will one day be making a difference. We will one day be peppering Caroline Leavitt with a question that is totally biased, because I don't believe in unbiased journalism. I believe in totally biased journalism. And I like to think that that is what I deliver to you every single day right here on this podcast and this live stream, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And if you agree and if you enjoy my biased journalism, then make sure you subscribe right now. Make sure you subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications, like and share this. Help to spread the word. Because if you enjoy this, you probably know other people who would too. And they would love to hear from you about this particular podcast. They would love to hear from you about this information. They would love it. In fact, I was having drinks with a friend of mine yesterday, and he said, I was at the barber shop, and I was talking to this woman who was cutting my hair, I guess, and she was all into your politics. So I turned her onto your show, and she started following you. I said, thanks, Ray. Also, your hair looks really good. So that anytime you come in contact with somebody who you think would love this show or who would appreciate this show, then by all means, please make sure that you are sharing the wealth with them too. Speaking of sharing the wealth, we got a Rumble rant that I wanted to share with you as well, because look, again, we are an independent program, and everything that we do here, we do independently. Through our sponsors and through our viewers and our listeners. And here's a Rumble rant from Matthew P. Johnson. $20. That's very nice. Has anyone heard if the Tina Peters has been set free yet? Nobody seems to be talking about her case anymore. She was sentenced to 9 years and was denied freedom while her lawyer is appealing the decision. I believe she's still behind bars. But that's a good question. You know what? I'll look into that over the weekend, and I'll report back to you sometime next week. Now, there's been a lot of questions, too, about what we're doing next week. We will be moving this show to 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time will be our new time for this show, based on, the market, based on the competition, based on the movements of everyone else. Dan Bongino moving to the FBI caused a lot of commotion in the online live streaming world, and we want to make sure that we're able to keep creating product that our audience is going to be there for, but also have a large enough audience that we can continue to do what we do. And so maneuvering this program to a different time slot because of some things that have been going on, because of some things that have been happening in the market and in the world of political live streaming, what we're going to do is we are going to, like I said, push back this broadcast. And instead of beginning at 12:15, we will begin at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time starting on Monday. What I may do is I may hop on at 12:15 just to remind you, but definitely spread the word, let everybody know, tell Siri, whatever you have to do. Make sure that on April 14th, which is next Monday, you tune in at 1 p.m. Eastern time for Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and then we will go, as long as we possibly can. Hopefully, you know what, and it may give me a little bit more time to prepare or a little bit more time to sleep in. I'm not really sure which one. Also, if you're one of the people that listens to the show after the fact or watches the show later on, don't worry, because it'll still be available for you around the same time. So we're not going to interfere with your listening habits at all. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for being Katriots. If you'd like to join us for the after party, it happens here in just a minute. Go to Katriots.com and join the Katriot Club. Free stickers, discounts at the Mark Kaye shop, and of course, access to the after party. It's all waiting for you right now at Katriots.com. Thank you again. I hope that you walk away every single day being entertained. I hope that you got a laugh at Peter Doocy getting hit in the head with a dirty bird at the White House. I know I did.
That's probably so dirty.
But most importantly, I hope that you stay inspired, that you know that you are on the right side of history, that if you support President Donald Trump and his Make America Great Again agenda, if you support closed borders and more freedom and less regulation and cutting your tax dollars, if you support a strong military, if you support all of these things, then you're in the right place, you're in the majority, and you are fighting for what is right, what is morally right, what is Christian, what is American, what is constitutional. And what better things to be fighting for than all of those things? And also know that you're not fighting alone. You got a whole bunch of Katriots behind you. You got a whole bunch of Katriots, new ones every single day, like the lady who cuts Ray's hair. And so we will continue to group a different time, but we're still going to be doing the same things. And we will be training and learning and fighting to save the Republic. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday. After party begins in 3 minutes.